Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Prepping by Faith, and I wanted to hit the highlights of one article and then go a little bit deeper into another one that I have found today for you guys. This first one was something that was actually sent to me by a subscriber, and it's talking about how the toxic wastewater used to extinguish the Ohio train derailment fire is getting sent to Texas. So what they are doing is they are moving this toxic wastewater that was used to extinguish this fire following the train derailment down to a Houston suburb for disposal. So this area is actually supposedly an area of the country that can manage these types of hazards, including the vinyl chloride as part of their hazardous waste permit and underground injection control permit. So they're going to be transporting all of this water that's very, very toxic across the country all the way down to Texas. And, that is a 1,300-mile trek. So, I don't understand why they're not trying to dispose of it a lot closer than where they have chosen to move it. But they talk about how they have accidents on a regular basis, and it's definitely silly to be moving it that far. But in addition to that, I wanted to go into what an actual deep well injection is, because I was not familiar with this term. I did not even know it. I didn't even know that it existed. And so what I have done is gone and found this article. This is very in-depth article. I'm only going to hit the highlights, but I would really encourage you guys to read through this document because it highlights so much about the history of when these things started, what they are, and all of the different failure points that we've had along the way, along with the science that doesn't really back it. So these injection wells, it's called the Poison Beneath Us, and this is through a organization called ProPublica. And they say that over the past several decades, U.S. industries have injected more than 30 trillion gallons of toxic liquid deep into the earth using broad expanses of the nation's geology as an invisible dumping ground. Doesn't that sound wonderful? So they're injecting this stuff deep within the earth. I believe at least 4,000 or 5,000 feet below Earth's crust. So no company would be allowed to pour such dangerous chemicals into rivers or onto the soil. But until recently, scientists and environmental officials have assumed that deep layers of rock beneath the earth would safely entomb the waste for millennia. So there's these growing signs that they were mistaken. Records from disparate corners of the United States show that wells drilled to bury this waste deep beneath the ground have repeatedly leaked, sending dangerous chemicals and waste gurgling to the surface or on occasion seeping into shallow aquifers that store a significant portion of the nation's drinking water. So they are, in effect, putting us at risk for our drinking water to be poisoned. In 2010, contaminants from such a well bubbled up in a West LA dog park. Within the past 3 years, now mind you, this came from 2012, similar fountains of oil and gas drilling waste have appeared in Oklahoma and Louisiana. In South Florida, 20 of the nation's most stringently regulated disposal wells failed in the early 1990s, releasing partly treated sewage into aquifers that may one day be needed to supply Miami's drinking water. There are more than 680,000 of these underground waste and injection wells nationwide, more than 150,000 of which shoot industrial fluids thousands of feet below the surface. Scientists and federal regulators acknowledge they do not know how many of these sites are leaking, so they don't even have a clear picture of how many of these are potentially leaking. What's concerning to me is that this was written way back in 2012 and we have no idea since then. You're talking another 11 years in the making. So they say in 10 to 100 years we are going to find out that most of our groundwater is polluted, said Mario Salazar, an engineer who worked for 25 years as a technical expert with the EPA's underground injection program in Washington. A lot of people are going to get sick and a lot of people may die. And he said in 10 to 100 years. Mind you, this was written 12 years ago. So here we are on the cusp of this kind of thing. So there is no certainty at all in any of this. And whoever tells you the opposite is not telling you the truth, said Stefan Finsterl, a leading hydrogeologist at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory who specializes in understanding the properties of rock layers and modeling how fluid flows through them. You have changed the system with pressure and temperature and fracturing, so you don't know how it will behave. Exactly. That only makes sense, right? A ProPublica review of well records, case histories, and government summaries of more than 220,000 well inspections found that structural failures inside injection wells are routine. They say that many scientists and regulators say that alternatives to the injection process, such as burning the waste, treating wastewater, recycling, or disposing of waste on the surface, are far more expensive or bring additional environmental risks. Well, do they really bring the additional environmental risks, or is it just the fact that they are more expensive? Because I can guarantee you guys that the real reason behind this is greed and that it's going to cost these companies too much money to dispose of this stuff correctly. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which is primary regulatory authority over the nation's injection wells, go figure, would not discuss specific well failures identified by ProPublica or make staffers available for interviews. No, because they want to cover it up, just like they are covering up this incident that took place in Ohio. This is what they specialize in. Deep well injections take place in 32 states from Pennsylvania to Michigan to California. Most wells are around the Great Lakes and in areas where oil and gas is produced along the Appalachian Crest and the Gulf Coast in California and in Texas, which has more wells for hazardous industrial waste and oil and gas waste than any other state. Federal rules divide wells into 6 classes based on the material they hold and the industry that produced it. So they've got these divided into all these different classes. So class 1 wells handle the most hazardous of materials, including fertilizers, acids, and deadly compounds such as asbestos, PCBs, and cyanide. The energy industry has its own category, class 2, which includes disposal wells and wells in which fluids are injected to force out trapped oil and gas. And the most common are these class 5, are sort of a catch-all for everything left from the other categories, including storm water runoff from gas stations. So I would imagine this one where everything is being transported to is going to be one of those class 1 wells. And they require that they be drilled the deepest, 1 and 2, to ensure that these most toxic waste is pushed far below the drinking water aquifers. Once waste is underground, though, they say there are few ways to track how far it goes, how quickly, or where it winds up. There is plenty of theory, but little data to prove that this system actually works. Well, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in this process for me. Operators are required to do so called mechanical integrity tests at regular intervals, yearly for class 1 wells, and at least once every 5 years for class 2 wells. Once every 5 years, really. In 2010, the test led to more than 7,500 violations nationally, with more than 2,300 wells failing. In Texas, one violation was issued for every 3 class 2 wells examined in 2010. So it sounds to me like they are not able to ensure the structural integrity of these wells, and they do have these fractures and problems with them constantly. They say that there are upwards of 2 million abandoned and plugged oil and gas wells in the U.S., more than 100,000 of which may not appear in regulators' records. Sometimes they are just broken off tubes of steel, buried or sticking out of the ground. Many are supposed to be sealed shut with cement, but studies show the cement breaks down over time, allowing seepage up the well structure. So they have yet to, in the 21st century, figure out how to properly seal these off with something that is a little bit stronger than cement. In April 1967, pesticide waste injected by a chemical plant at Denver's Rocky Mountain Arsenal destabilized a seismic fault, causing a magnitude 5.0 earthquake strong enough to shatter windows and close schools and jolting scientists with newfound risks of injection. A year later, a corroded hazardous waste well for pulping liquor at the Hammermill Paper Company in Erie, Pennsylvania ruptured. 5 miles away, a noxious black liquid seeped from an abandoned gas well. In 1975, in Beaumont, Texas, dioxin and a highly acidic herbicide injected underground by the Velisocol Chemical Corporation burned a hole through its well casing, sending as much as 5 million gallons of the waste into nearby drinking water aquifer. Then in August 1984, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, radioactive waste was turned up by water monitoring near a deep injection well at a government nuclear facility. So, guys, this is stuff that has gone on for years and years. They go ahead and list all these other incidences, even after the EPA put in the Safe Water Act, which I believe they said was in 1974. And then in 1980 set up these tiered classes of these wells. They've still continued to have issues since then, and they've done little to regulate that or ensure our safety for our drinking water. um, According to the model, vertical movement of underground fluids shouldn't be possible at all, or should happen over what scientists call geologic time, which are thousands of years or longer. Yet a 2011 study in Wisconsin found that human viruses had managed to infiltrate deep aquifers, probably moving downward through layers believed to be a permanent seal. So this stuff is continuing to leak in. It's moving human viruses into the water system. It's out of sight, out of mind now, but 50 years from now, Meyer said, referring to injected waste and the rock layers trusted to entrap it. Simply put, they are not impermeable. So they have set us up, guys, for some serious rough times ahead. And from what Angry Prepper has reported, it doesn't sound like there are very many processes, if any, available to remove certain types of toxins from our water supply. So this is a very dangerous road that we're on. I thought that I would go ahead and share this with you guys, not to frighten you, but to inform you about what is really going on, what has been going on for decades. I have never heard of any of this information before. And it wasn't until somebody sent me that article that I was able to figure out what a deep well injection actually was, because I had never heard that term before. I guess that it's terminology that's been around. Let me know what you guys think. Please comment down below if you guys have ever heard of this before. I would love to hear your thoughts. I am going to be linking this article for you along with the first one that I had touched on in the description box per usual. I don't know what to tell you guys about this stuff, except for our water supply is not nearly as secure in the United States as one would think. We have these rogue agencies at the top that simply do not care about ensuring the water safety. I don't understand why, because these people have to drink water as well. And you would think that they would be more concerned for themselves too, and not just, their pocketbooks, but apparently that is not the case. So I wanted to bring this to you guys' attention. I want to still encourage you to continue pursuing different methods of filtration and purification. I believe that reverse osmosis may be one of the better moves as far as purifying water. So I would definitely look into that. If that's not something that you have or that you have researched, I would look into that. I would also continue praying about this, because we need the Lord's protection, and we need an overhaul in this country on so many levels. It isn't even just our water supply. Everything seems to be falling to shambles, and we need his divine protection and his help in these situations, because some of these things are outside of our control. All we can do is control our little area of the world. So I want to continue to encourage you guys to pray, to seek him first. And if you guys have enjoyed this video today, please give me a like, share, and subscribe. Remember to pray, prep, and put God first. God bless. Hey guys, are you concerned about the death of the dollar? Are you concerned about a full blown economic collapse? If you are, I want you to consider giving Genesis Gold Group a call. They are a Christian based company that is going to help you roll over your 401k into a gold backed IRA that is self governed. You also have the ability to send them cash and take possession of those precious metals if that is something that you would like to do. As we see all of these things unfolding before us, the sky high inflation, the move away from the US dollar as a petrodollar, and we see the central bank digital currencies that are going to be underway this summer. Preserving our wealth through precious metals is one way to sort of hedge our bets and make sure that we have something that is going to be more substantial to carry us forward. So go ahead, check them out. They are Genesis Gold Group, genesisgoldgroup.com, or give them a call at 1-800-200-4653. Tell them Prepping by Faith sent you, and God bless.